Welcome to Web Applications for Everybody. In this little video we're going to talk a little bit about the code that it takes to build this assignment, the auto grader with profiles and positions. The focus of this, of course, is JQuery. So here's the assignment, and it really, like most assignments, builds heavily on the previous assignment. So we have that. Hopefully that code works. If you're just trying to type it in from this lecture, you're not going to do so well. So go back and do it one piece at a time. That's how it's intended to be done. So I keep saying that. So we're going to need another table. This one's going to be a position. Let's just walk through the code first. I'll come back to that. So I'm going to walk through it on my local system. Actually, to walk through it on my local system, I'm going to have to make this table because I have the profile and users table already from the previous. And I'm going to say go. Okay, so now I've got all three of them. So I'm going to log in, and if all goes well, UMSIN PHP 123. That of course is checking in the users table and checking, with an SQL query, hashing the password and checking to see if the hash password matches. So log in. And so we're going to add a new entry. So this is exactly the same, and the only real difference here is we can add multiple positions. So this is going to be a many-to-one relationship. The positions, there's a user, depending on how you did it, you might end up with a many-to-one profile to user, but right now it's kind of a one-to-one profiles and users. But then we're going to allow many positions. So what we've done is we're using JQuery. We've got this little plus box, and I can put my first position, and then I can add another one. I can say 2001, and then I can add this whole thing. So put some of that in. And now if I take a look, you will see that I have two positions. And if you take a look in the database, what you will see is we have one user, we have one profile, and then we have two positions that are foreign keyed to the same profile. So this is the many part to the one part in the profile. So there's one profile, and then there are many positions to that one profile. So continuing along, we got the view code that had to change. Notice that we keep sending this get parameter along because that's how we gotta move things back and forth so we know which one it is. The edit code's a little tricky, right? You're supposed to be able to do, right, make the normal changes. This is kind of like from the previous assignment. Let's go ahead and start in this index code. Here we are. So let's see, a couple of bits of information here. Let's make this a little bigger. Util. I've collected some common things that I want to do over and over into this util and put them into functions. We'll go through these as I go through later. And I just pull it in very beginning. I pull my PDO to get my database connection, then I just define all these functions. It's kind of a perfect little thing where it's got no side effects. There's a less than question mark PHP. You don't put a question mark like that at the end because you don't want to put an extra space after that, or it will trigger the output that says you can't do headers. So when you make library code like that, so the first thing I did is I don't want to repeat myself, and so this is flash messages that we've been typing this over and over and over again. Well, for the rest of the semester, I am not going to type that anymore. So we're not here. Every time I want to put those flash messages out after this H1, I'm going to put them out right there, and that's basically those 8 lines of code. So we got logging in and logging out, and you'll notice that this will show the profiles even when you're logged out. And so, but if you're not logged in, so if there is no user ID in the session, no primary key of the user in the session, it's going to show you please log in, right here, or it's going to show you please log out. So then let's go ahead into the login. If we take a look at login.php, It's kind of similar to what we've been doing all along. Let's see, setting the session up. If it was successful, we do the lookup. We did that on the last assignment. Do validate, all that, and that's really just from the previous assignment. So there's not much in there that's different. I do use flash messages. Right, I use flash messages in login, so that's about all I need to show you in login. So let's go ahead and log in. It's going to do the same. I mean, it carries over from the previous account. PHP 123. Log in. Okay, so now let's take a look at the. Let's look at one more thing here, just so you know, because I got all this sort of bootstrappy stuff going on like we have, and I got tired of typing that all over and over again. So I have this require once head.php and head.php. It's not really PHP code. This is really HTML code. So oops. This is just HTML, and that's a set of links that get me into get my Bootstrap and Bootstrap JavaScript, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that I sort of grabbed from a website to tell me how to do that. Let's get out of there. Okay, so let's go into the add code, because the add code is the interesting stuff. So this is, again, code that's very similar to the code that we did before, right? I mean, a lot of this is coming across. These lines here, I bring in util, of course, but these lines here, the exact same thing, the model part of checking to see, this is a little bit different, and I'll show you that in a second. There's some more stuff, I'll get to that. And then, flash messages, and then we have a form, and there's a few little things in here, but a lot of this is the same, and that's why it's really important that you do a good job on the previous assignment before you dig into this assignment, okay? So let's follow a few things through. So I've changed some of this code. Let's take a look here. So this part here is pretty similar, but this part here is different. So this is sort of the model code that's going to execute if there's some post data. Now normally we would validate the data, but I've moved that into util.php because I have to do it both in the add and the edit. And so here we are in the utility code in util.php. So I'm doing the kinds of things that I'm supposed to do. Remember, $post is a super global, so it passes seamlessly between main code and utility code. So I'm checking to see if the lengths of the fields, just like we always do, and I return a string. And if something's wrong with the email, I return a string, but if everything's fine, I return true. This notion of returning a string or a something else, I'm changing both the type and the value that I'm returning. And in a language like PHP that handles this sort of mixed typing, we can do that. And so if we take a look here in add.php, I get back a message. I don't know if that's a true or if it's a string, but if it is a string, I know that I've got an error and that the message contains the error. So I'm kind of sending two pieces of information back in one variable using sort of the pattern of mixed. If something's wrong, I just redirect back to add.php. And again, by taking the code that would normally be here and moving it into util.php, I can save myself effort. Now here's validating the position. I'll show you that later. Here is one new thing, getting the insert ID, because when we're putting in the positions, we're going to connect them to profiles. We need to get the key, the primary key. I've mentioned this before, that, it'll be easy in PHP because you'll get to see the primary key. Well, this is the call to say, hey, you just did an insert. Tell me what key that you gave to that. So that's pretty cool, okay? This next bit I'll show as we're doing it. Then walking through the code, we basically see, normal stuff, last messages is a form, pretty much the same. And then there is this bit here, which is the plus sign, right? Here's the plus sign. Hang on, it's this plus sign right here that makes it so that you can do the add. And we're going to do something to that in JavaScript using JQuery in a second. Oh, I want to inspect it. So it's just sitting there at some point. And then JQuery is going to attach something to it. I'll show you that in a second. And again, like JavaScript to jQuery, I have a little div. This little div lives carefully between. This div is empty, and it lives between the plus and the add and the cancel, right? The plus and the add and the cancel. And then this is the add and the cancel, and then that's the end of the form. So we're going to have sort of a little code that runs at the beginning. That's what this is. And just I'll print a message. So $add pose. That looks up this. It says go find the element that has add pose as its ID. And .click says let's register an event, meaning when we click on the plus, click, I'm not going to do it right now, call this code. So it's kind of inception here, where we're having a thing that is called when jQuery declares that the document is completely loaded, and then what we're going to do is add an event. So this is the code that runs every time I have a plus. Now let's take a look at what happens here when I add the plus. So let's even come down here and look at position fields. So what's going to happen is this plus is going to add HTML to this div, and I'll show you how it works. So now all of a sudden there is actually stuff inside here. There's stuff in there, and it's all the document object has been changed. That's what's going on here. So let's see how I change it. So this is the code that ran right from here to here is the code that runs when the click happens. I say event prevent default. That's kind of like returning false in old style JavaScript. We're going to have a global variable called count position. Remember, JavaScript is funky in that variables are global unless you tell them otherwise. Yikes. But that's okay. I'm going to use that global variable to keep track of how many times this click has happened. And what that does is, if you hit the plus too many times, plus, it says, okay, you can only have 9 of these things. I just made that. So let's get out of here and get back in. So I'm hit plus again, so a thing's going to show up. So then I'm adding 1, and that basically says I can't keep doing this forever. Because you'll see later, I depend on this going from 1 to 9. Okay, so I'm also showing in a nice little console log, view, developer console. I'm adding position 1. See that? That console came out. Then what I do is I go grab that div, position fields. That's that empty div, and then I'm going to append this bit right here. So at this point, this is just a big long string concatenation. And so I'm going to put a div with an ID, and then string position is probably easier for you to see at this point with inspect element what I produced. Make this as tall as I can. Come on. So I have a div that is generated, right? I made this up, right? And inside there's position 1. Now you'll see why I have to do that in a second. And then I have a paragraph. So there's a p tag, and then the year, and then I have an input type text, and then year 1. So what I'm doing is I'm putting more form fields in. So this is name year 1, right? And this is a text area with desk 1 right here, count pose. So I've added 1 to count pose here, but I just am concatenating. These are just concatenation, just a big long string concatenation. Okay? Now the only bit right here that is kind of tricky is right there. Okay? We look at this. This is again jQuery. So I'm saying $go find position 1. Well, that's a div I just made. Go find it and then remove it. .remove and then return false, and that's so that this doesn't actually submit it. So what happens is I've got a little onClick event. I'm going to say minus, and it's going to just wipe this guy out. So watch the DOM change when I hit the minus. Ka-chunk. Now it's gone. See? I can add it. And now if I look in position fields, it's back. It's 2 now because this count pos didn't go back down. So I've got position 2, description 2, and then I've got this little onClick guy that's going to go wipe out the position 2 div. So that gets rid of that. So you see how I'm sort of constructed this form. I'm really extending the form at this point. So let me cancel and do another one. So then let me show you what happens when we submit the form. Okay? So when we submit the form, and then I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, blah. I'm going to add another one, 4, 5, 6, blah. So let's inspect the element and take a look at what we got as a result of this. So I've got two of these things, two divs. I got a desk 1 and I got a year 1. So I have a series of post values. When I hit add, boom, when I hit that add, it's going to send year 1, desk 1, whatever I've typed in. This is going to be the year 2 variable, and this is going to be the year 1 variable, desk 1, year 2, desk 2. And I constructed that by carefully building this little bit of string. Okay? So then, when I hit that post, when I hit the post, it's going to go and send in not just the top fields, but however many of these fields, and they've been named very carefully. So I have to validate the profile, that's the top bit of fields, but then validate all the positions, and that is code in util.php. So let's take a look at that. So validate the positions. So here what we're doing is we're going through, because remember there's somewhere between year 1 and year 9. That's just a string, right? That's not an array, it's just a string. So what I'm doing is I'm checking to see all of the years from 1 to 9. If it's not set, I'm going to continue, and if the description is not there for this particular, I'm going to continue. And then I'm going to basically say, oh, I'm going to grab the year out, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, whichever one is there. And then if they're missing, then I'm going to complain about required. And if it's not if the year is not numeric, I'm going to say it's not numeric. Otherwise, I'll return true. So in the add.php, this is going to validate all of those entries up from 1 through 9. And I get an error message, and I go back if there's a mistake. But let's assume that works. So it's coming down here. So now, because I'm down at this point right here, I know that I've got valid data in year. There might be no year data. There might be year 1 through 9 might not exist, desk 1, but if they do, they're valid. So I'm going to go through and loop through again, and now what I'm going to do is check to see if there is data. If there's not, I'm just skipping. If there is, I'm going to pull it out. I don't have to validate it here because I pre-validated it before. And then I'm going to insert into the position, which is the year I got, the description, and then rank. I just use rank as a way to put these in order, so they're order by, so they're the same order. So rank is going to be 1 for this one, 2 for that one. It's just a way to make sure that they show up in order. You can see this. The rank is just goes up 1, 2 for each of the profile. But then what I need to do is I need to set the foreign key, right? I need to set the foreign key to the profile that this position is associated. I'm inserting a position. It's going to be associated with a profile, and I just got done inserting the profile ID. So that is the foreign key for the new position row pointing back to the profile. So let me go ahead, and after all that fuss, press the add button. Hopefully I don't have any errors. So there we go. And it has 2 of these guys. So let's take a look at the edit code. I just got done talking about add. Let's take a look at the edit code. Most of this is pretty cool. Now, recall that when we're in the middle of an edit, you have to have a get parameter. So let's go through the first thing. We'll talk a little bit about this, but first I'm going to just make a mistake, okay? And I'm going to post it. So this is going to be posted. And so when I hit the post button and I hit save, it says all fields are required. But the biggest mistake that you're going to find is that you need to add this on the redirect, right? So this edit.php, because there was a post and then there was a redirect because of the header. So let's take a look at the validate profile. And so you'll see that what I'm doing is in add, I didn't have to do this. Because add, you're not really, we just redirected back to add.php, right? Oops. In edit, we have to redirect, but we're still editing the profile, right? So we need that as a get parameter because we're going to use that later down here in the, we're going to use this to load up the positions. And where that stuff is in util, right? Load pos loads an array of positions from a particular database connection for a particular profile ID. And so that's going to do that, and then we're going to loop through those things in our edit, and we did that to to create these things. We had to loop through and reconstruct all of the, we had to reconstruct all of the HTML for these things. Position, submit, add pose, position fields, these things are all here now. I had to reconstruct these, but in this case they're not coming from JavaScript, they're coming from the database. Okay? So that's all down here. But just know that you've got to, when you're redirecting with a get parameter, you want to make sure you put the get parameter on there. So the get parameter, you're redirecting to it so you don't lose track of which profile you're editing. Here's a tricky thing. So validate positions, it's nice that that's sitting in util. Thank heaven. I wrote that once. I use it in the add and I use both these things in both the add and the edit. Saves me a little bit of coding over and over. But here's the trick. So let me show you what I need to be able to do, right? It's one thing if I'm going to make a change. Let's just make this be 999. Hello. Just edit stuff. Okay, so what'll happen is, what I'm going to do is, as a simplifying thing, I am actually going to wipe out all of these rows every time I edit, because all the data that I'm submitting of all the positions, it's kind of like a new add. Right, and so what I'm going to actually do, I could write much more complex code, but what I'm really doing is I'm just going to wipe out the old positions, not the old profile, with a single delete, and then I'm going to reinsert them. And so this is pretty much the code straight out of add. So it's re-editing. So the net effect of this, that's just a way to make your life simple, okay? The net effect of this, when I hit this save, is you will see that these will be updated, but then the position IDs, I'm going to kind of be wasting primary keys. There are trickier ways to do this, but for now, let's not worry too much about the trickier ways to do it. So if I go back here, you'll see that these are 3 and 4, and I rebrowse again. Oh, was that because I added a new one? I must, oh, there's 2 of them. Right, there's 2 of them, because I added them. Let's change them again. 5555. 8888. Save it again. Yeah, so you saw 7 and 8 went away and 9 and 10 replaced them. So I actually got more than one profile going on here. I should be able to see that if I just get out. Yeah, I got more than one profile. Let's get rid of that guy. So now it'll make more sense. Yeah, 9 and 10. Let's update it again. So you will see that this is 9 and 10 become 11 and 12. Now the interesting thing is this also allows me to easily add a situation where I can get rid of one of these things and then add another one. And so if you look at this one, this is going to be number 2 because I deleted the first one. So year 2 is there. So there's no year 1. Right? There's a position 2 and a position 3. This position 2, this one here came from the database. This one here came from the database. This one here is new, and that's position 3. So in a sense, I've still got this code down here at the bottom to add more stuff. Right? That code is still there, and so I'm on the edit page. I can edit existing ones, or I can add new ones. And so in this case, I'm going to sort of get rid of 11 and 12. So every time I wipe out all of them and then I re-add them all. So now there should be a 111 because I deleted one. I hit the minus up there. You can go back and scroll back. And then I'm going to save it. And now because effectively I do a delete and re-add, it makes my life really, really simple, and I can reuse code from delete and add. And so there they are, 13 and 14. And I mean, I could probably have put some of this in util, right? I could have, this code right here, I could have put this in util because that is exactly copied literally from add. So doing all the inserts. I could have moved that into util if I wanted to. So there you go. Kind of a crazy walkthrough of the profiles, positions in jQuery, where we have basically a many-to-one relationship where you can have many positions mapping to one profile. Cheers.